In the fall of 1919, the resort town of Capitola was purchased by Henry Rispin. Rispin had struck it rich with an oil well in Wyoming and decided to move with his wife and son back to California and invest in real estate. He set out to remodel Capitola and make it more appealing for tourists and for people wanting lots to build vacation homes. Rispin hired San Francisco Bay Area architect George McCrea to draw up plans for the improvements. He also had McCrea design a large home for the Rispin family. It was in the Spanish colonial revival style and still stands. Like Rispin, McCrea was born in Ontario, Canada in the early 1870s. The architect mostly designed private residences and churches. Architects were not as specialized in those days, and McCrea did landscape design, engineering, and surveying. Our first stop is on Cherry Avenue because it has something much of Capitola Village does not have: overhead wires and utility poles. Several of McCrea's ideas were ahead of their time. Way back in 1919, McCrea recommended that unsightly wires be put underground, but this did not happen for many years. The last power pole was removed from Capitola Avenue in 1985. McCrea lived in Capitola while working on the town's facelift, and in all likelihood had his office in the superintendent's building. This was where the resort headquarters was located. He was assisted by a 22-year-old apprentice named Helen Benbow. Benbow gained valuable hands-on experience while also studying to pass the exam to become a licensed California architect. She wrote many letters home to her sisters.
Dear Lee, talk about real country. I wish you could see Capitola and the surrounding hills. It is surely beautiful. We are having a delightful rain today with a cozy fire in the office. Mr. McCrea is surely a dandy teacher and very enthusiastic about my study and progress. We have had a dandy lesson on furniture, calculus, and logarithms. After dinner, we come back to the office, build a nice fire, and study for a couple of hours. Shorthand still has a strong appeal to me, and I really intend to write 250 words a minute someday. But right now, my thoughts are full of the numbers of steel rods it will take to support a concrete beam 12 inches in diameter over a 12-foot span, etc. Great stuff, and mighty interesting.
In 1919, an electric streetcar line looped through Capitola Village. Under McCrea and Rispin, however, the loop was discontinued and a terminus built at the end of Capitola Avenue. This enabled the realignment and renovation of what would become the Esplanade. This building was constructed at the site of the terminus after the streetcar line was discontinued in 1924. In 1919, Capitola's streets were still unpaved. McCrea suggested oiled macadam or concrete. Rispin chose the latter. Parts of San Jose Avenue and Park Plaza still show what appears to be this early pavement. This picture of the Esplanade in early 1920 shows a cement mixer pouring the concrete. Next, we visited the site of the Grand Hotel Capitola. It was only about 20 years old when Rispin decided he wanted to replace it that first winter with one in the more modern Spanish colonial revival style. The plan was soon postponed, however, until the following winter, and then eventually dropped. The street along the waterfront, called Bay Front, was renamed the Esplanade, curved, and moved seaward partly over the beach. It is hard to know which ideas were McCrea's and which were Rispin's, and they did not always agree.
Dearest Eva, the work is certainly coming out fine. While Mr. McCrea hasn't had his own way enough, still, he has managed by making an awful fight to get things the way he wanted, so that a restful feeling, little old village atmosphere, pervades rather than the cheap circus-in-town feeling. You know what I mean, Eva? Now, the great difficulty is signs. Every concessionaire wants to hang a banner clear across the street in front of his place, etc. And Mr. Rispin doesn't see why it isn't all right. But I think Mr. McCrea will win out.
Buildings on the ocean side of the street were removed to provide an uninterrupted view of the beach and bay. The only building retained was the bandstand. Greatly remodeled, it survived until 1960, when the current restaurant building was constructed. Some of the lumber from the old bathhouse was used to build a movie theater on San Jose Avenue. It opened June 18, 1920, and had nearly 300 seats.
Dearest everybody, have just come in from an exciting Wild West movie in our little new theater here in Capitola. Alias the Old Bathhouse moved from its old location about a block away, remodeled by McCrea and Benbow, architects, and painted. And behold, a dandy little movie house.
The old bathhouse, which was dismantled, had dressing rooms for those who wanted to go swimming or use the hot tub baths. McCrea replaced it with a boat and bathhouse that was smaller and curved. The architectural style was similar to the Rispin mansion. Its location, however, made it vulnerable to storm waves, as in this scene from 1926. Miraculously, it survived that storm. At the time of Capitola's makeover, the Italian fishing village was still located near the foot of the wharf. McCrea suggested painting the cottages different colors, such as blue, pink, and yellow, like in Italy. The colors would reflect on the water of the lagoon, he said, and make an attractive scene from the windows of the hotel. The fishing village cottages were removed in 1922, and construction of the Venetian court began in 1924. Coincidentally, the Venetian court owners started painting their units different colors many years later, just as suggested by McCrea. McCrea proposed a permanent concrete dam at the mouth of Soquel Creek rather than the seasonal sand berm. He estimated that it would create a 4 to 5 foot deep lake from the seawall to the fishing village and a half-mile up the creek. Water from the concrete spillway would empty under the wharf. Such a permanent dam was never built, and probably would have succumbed to storm waves. In June of 1920, the newly remodeled Capitola opened for the tourist season.
Dearest Jessie and Jimmy, the summer season is on in full swing now. Dance hall, theater, skating rink, hot dogs, waffles, ice cream parlor, grocery, delicatessen, creamery, butcher shop, restaurant, hotel, cottages, cabins, tents, rowing, swimming, anything you please, even a dandy little drugstore. I didn't even mention pool, billiards, and a bowling alley. You certainly wouldn't know the place. I will send you some pictures, however, that give one a good idea. I can hear the music from the dance hall clear up here in my room now. I don't mind the crowd. It really seems rather festive for a change. The big rush of our work is over now, and it seems good just to work, rather than at that rushed feeling all the time.
Rispin's dreams for Capitola proved overly ambitious, and he had to mortgage his holdings to pay for improvements. By the decade's end, he had lost Capitola to creditors. Nevertheless, the efforts of Rispin and McCrea's reinventing of the town resonate to this very day.